Thank you all. And thank you all very kindly for joining us today. So I really get the privilege to do a land acknowledgement on this session. And I just want to say that I really appreciate the opportunity to do that. It's so important and something that KBHN is deeply committed to. We try to put reconciliation into all the work that we're doing, and I know that all of us are on our own journeys through that reconciliation process, and I really encourage everyone to reflect on your own experiences based on the traditional lands you occupy and the experiences you've had. When I get these opportunities, as many of you know, I usually read out the TRC call to action number 22, but instead, today I'm changing it up. I read a little passage from Ally as a Verb by Rose LeMay, and I thought I'd share that here instead. Reconciliation is up to non-Indigenous Canadians from coast to coast to coast to learn enough about the reasons why it's needed, to deepen their knowledge and capacity to see the current inequities facing Indigenous people and do their part for reconciliation by fixing those inequities. We will know that we are getting close to being done when Indigenous peoples have similar health and well-being outcomes as any other group in Canada, and when Canada is proud to be an Indigenous country. Deeply honored to be part of an organization who takes that work seriously and deeply appreciative of Brain Canada's commitment to the same. KBHN is a national organization, and I'm privileged to work, live, and play on the traditional, unceded, and unsurrendered Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory, today called Ottawa. The Algonquin and Anishinaabe people have been here and guardians of this land since time immemorial, and I am grateful for the opportunity to be present on this territory. I acknowledge their traditional knowledge keepers who have shared and continue to share the wisdom of the past as a cornerstone for understanding between our respective nations for present and future. I really, really appreciate all of you folks for being here today. So that's about all I'm going to say for the day, but there are some other great speakers here. Of course, Annalise from Brain Canada. We appreciate your attendance, and Jen Zwicker, KBHN's chief scientist, and Grant Bruno, who wears many, many hats. Today, one of those hats is as scientific advisor and the chair of our Indigenous Advisory Circle here at KBHN. We'll talk a little bit about those partnerships between KBHN and Brain Canada, an overview of our funding opportunities, a bit about the application itself, and then opportunity for folks to ask us questions. Again, please use the Q&A function in the chat. And with that, I'll pass it to Jen.
Great, thanks, Corey. So just a very brief overview about Kids Brain Health Network. Many of you may be familiar already. Our vision is really that all children living with neurodevelopmental disabilities enjoy quality of life, inclusion in all aspects of society, and are really given the opportunity to reach their full potential. With this, we have a mission as an organization to be doing this to catalyze, by catalyzing collective action across sectors. So investing in opportunities to ensure that KBHN ensures optimal care and better outcomes for children with neurodevelopmental disabilities and their families. And this occurs across three core challenge areas, one being early identification, second being effective interventions, and the third being support for families. So these are really core areas that all of KBHN's investments have focused around, again, with the aim of just really improving outcomes for neurodiverse youth and their families. Our funding is received by the Strategic Science Fund, and we're very grateful for their support and ability to grow as a network. This is from Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada. And really some of the objectives that come from this fund are to increase the quality of international leading edge research, develop world-class talent, and accelerate the translation of knowledge into action. And, you know, this is really core in terms of ensuring that a lot of the innovations that are being developed really reach children and their families. That's back to KBHN's mission. So very excited about this opportunity and the partnership with Brain Canada. And with that, I'll hand it off to Annalise.
Thanks, Jen. My name is Annalise Poets, and I'm the Senior Program Manager, Knowledge Mobilization for Social Innovation at Brain Canada, which is a national funding organization for brain research. I'm joining you from where I live, work, and play on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. At Brain Canada, our vision is bold science for brain health. We accomplish this through supporting research with a focus on any and all aspects of brain health, from mental health to brain cancer and neurodevelopment and many other topics. Just for your information, we fund 4 types of grants. There's team grants, capacity building grants, platform grants, and knowledge mobilization grants. We are committed to supporting Indigenous research and community partnerships in order to improve health outcomes for Indigenous people in Canada through our trainee award programs for Indigenous and graduate students, and partnerships such as this program, which is co-funded with KBHN. Our grants are funded through the Canada Brain Research Fund, which is an arrangement with the government where we match federal funds with funds from like-minded partners, sponsors, and donors. We're really pleased to partner on this important initiative with KBHN, and we're excited for the potential to have a significant real-world impact for Indigenous populations in Canada. Back to you, Corey.
Thank you so much, Annalise. So as we're all here, really interested in this new opportunity, I'm happy to pass it over to Grant to discuss a little bit about the call for proposals. Grant, to you.
For sure. Yeah, so when we were first having these initial discussions about what kind of role I could take on within KBHN, with my lived experience, both as a parent to autistic children, as well as an assistant professor in pediatrics here at the University of Alberta, those conversations quickly turned into what kind of support do our families and our communities and the people that we care for, who might have some neurodivergence in their lives, what do they actually need? And so rather than just myself trying to make all of these different decisions and trying to do it all by myself, I came up with the idea of developing a circle. And so here we have our Indigenous Advisory Circle. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of what everybody brings, but just know that this circle, we all carry different identities and different expertise. We have clinicians, we have a pediatrician, we have lived experience, we have caregivers, we have community supports. And so over the course of trying to recruit people, we were very mindful as well as trying to make sure we had as best as we could, it's not perfect by any means, national representation as well. And so we did try to go coast to coast to coast. But of course, there's still work to be done there. And that's something that I think, and I really appreciate from the leadership of KBHN, have really allowed for a group to come together and provide really solid feedback into this funding stream. And so over the course of the summer, myself and Corey started planning out that first circle, and we started asking ourselves is what kind of information or what kind of guidance do we actually need? And so, we came up with the idea of having, of course, a funding stream, but we weren't sure what the details of what that could look like. And so taking the guidance of our first circle, which happened in late August, we showed up and we said, we have this funding that we can now start to really look forward to and start to really build out to ensure that it's having the impact that we need to have with our communities and our families. We came up with the idea of 2 different but very connected funding streams. And of course, these programs are made possible through KBHN, through the Government of Canada, through all these different ideas. And so the Indigenous stream. And so this Indigenous-led funding stream reflects that commitment of both KBHN and Brain Canada. And it really is an act of reconciliation for KBHN to allow myself and my circle to lead this, and really just allowed us to come up with these 2 different funding streams in ways that I think are quite unique, but also really exciting. As far as I know, we might be breaking ground here. We might be able to actually provide opportunities for the relationship building pieces of research, which unfortunately doesn't happen nearly enough, but also to be able to enhance programming that's already happening. And so when we think about, we really talked about we needed the work to be strength-based. We wanted it to be community-led. We wanted, opportunities for families and people of the like to be able to report on it eventually, to ensure that, data sovereignty principles were being adhered to and so on and so forth. Next slide. And so the first funding stream we came up with was, well, we're going to call a connection grant. And as mentioned earlier, I think relationship building, especially when it comes to research and other types of initiatives, is key as a key foundational piece to us as Indigenous peoples. And not to pan-indigenize too much. But one thing that I've kind of learned over the years, I've worked with Haudenosaunee people, I've worked with Anishinaabe people, with Mi'kmaq out in the east, and with some of the coastal tribes, is that a lot of our worldviews are based on relationality. And one thing that I find within the research world is, not a lot of time or effort or resources are put towards that relational kind of piece. And so the Connection Grant is here to kind of start that. The other thing I really noticed is that while there are people within the neurodevelopmental space who are doing this work that have Indigenous partnerships or Indigenous themselves, they're really few and far between, unfortunately. And so this is an opportunity for people who may not have those relationships to build them. And so the Connection Grant, I believe, is a 1 year long grant. It's 25,000 over that 1 year. Of course, we require some one-on-one partner matching to fund. But it really gives that opportunity to start those connections, and also allows the community to kind of lead what that research question might look like later on, right? So this Connection Grant can possibly connect both the researcher as well as the community to further their funding, and to really kind of plant those seeds that I think really need to start happening, especially in the neurodevelopmental space. Next slide. And then we have the Community Impact Grant. And so this is, again, different projects that are positioned to advance solutions that are feasible, scalable, and sustainable within Indigenous contexts. And so for the individuals who might have these relationships already, which is, I think, an amazing thing, we really wanted to provide an opportunity for people to really take their ideas and start to really build them out, right? And so those are larger grants over the course of, I think, a year as well, or 2 years. Next slide. Yeah, so $100,000 a year for up to 2 years from funders. Again, we do require that partner matching funding. But at the same time, I really think that if you already have those relationships and you've been doing a really good job, there should and could be opportunities for you to enhance that work and to really, again, provide that positive impact we all need to see within community. Next slide. So again, we invite academics in partnership with Indigenous communities to bring forward projects that create impact to measurably improve outcomes for Indigenous families, are grounded in community identified priorities, build capacity within Indigenous academics and the communities alike, have clearly identified goals, activities, and expected outcomes, and also demonstrate feasibility and sustainability. Next slide.
All right. I think do you want to keep going, Grant, or do you want me to take over? You're good?
I'm good. You can take over, Jen. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Grant. So I just a few more details before we wrap up and you take questions or anything that anyone wants to ask about. Just the application itself there's a few items that were kind of described already, and we'll just kind of go into a little bit more detail around. First, that they're required to include just a level of written commitment that the funder investment in research will be matched by cash or in kind for external sources at that ratio of 1 to 1, including at least 50% cash. So that's just one of the requirements on the matched funding side of things. If we go to the next slide, just a little bit more on the match funding, it must be contributions cash or in kind to be spent on the project. Just to note that they can't include federal sources. That just relates to the funding requirements for our match requirements from Kids Brain Health Network and Brain Canada. Match funds for this competition can't have been reported as match funding for another federal program. So just kind of needs to be sort of a new match in that respect. The nominated principal investigator and one other team member must be from an eligible Canadian institution and affiliated for the full grant duration and be independent researchers. So those are just 2 team members. The nominated principal investigator and other team members. Certainly we're encouraging a wide range of team members on the team more broadly. And then thinking about templates, just a note that there are templates available on our website. So just want to point you to that and can really be helpful in structuring your proposal and some of the supporting materials. And then the submission process will be online through our website. The timeline is that applications are due December 5th at 6 p.m. Pacific time with it. And we're looking to have an anticipated award start date of March 2026. And of course, just to be fair to everybody, submitting late applications are not going to be considered. So we'll just go into a little bit more detail on the proposal, wanting to provide some information on some of the project objectives, methods, outcomes, thinking it'll be important to include an evaluation plan to better understand kind of how you're going to evaluate your progress and some of the timelines and key milestones associated with what you're proposing. We'll want to include some information on the role and contribution of each member of the project team. So it's great to be able to list people, but it's even better to be able to describe kind of what they'll be doing within the described proposal. Describe how the project approaches sex and gender considerations will be helpful, and really describe how community engagement is being weaved throughout the project. As was mentioned earlier, really we are interested in this community development. And so I want to see this as kind of authentic, real development of partnerships and new relationships. Thinking about the plan for sustainability beyond this initiative. So really excited to spark some of these connections and partnerships, and really wanting to think about how they could continue going forward past this individual proposal. If we go to the next slide, talk a little bit about impact, wanting to think about the metrics to assess what success might look like. That might be things like number of children and families who could benefit, the number or type of organizations that are involved, thinking about maybe some sort of change to policy or practice that might occur, intellectual property that might be created, or new expanded market for commercialization. These are just some examples, certainly open to lots of different ways that impact might occur, but wanting to better understand if you're able to achieve whatever it is you're describing in the proposal, what would that impact look like? And that really helps us define those impact metrics from an organizational standpoint. And then thinking, of course, about feasibility and sustainability. We're wanting to help catalyze these relationships and partnerships, but don't want that to be the end of the story. So thinking about early how we can start developing and the sustainability and feasibility plan. So looking to include a one-page narrative, noting that this is separate from the budget around some of that feasibility and sustainability going forward. This might include some description of PI's other relevant activities and how they fit within sort of an overall program of research, or some of the existing partnerships that have already been ongoing. Thinking about why the funding is needed and how that's going to help catalyze these new relationships or partnerships towards impact, and how this funding might differ from any other existing funding that's being held. And then the last slide we have is just talking about some of the letters of support. Really encourage inclusion of some of these letters of support. They're very helpful in talking about the community impact and how they may be signaling kind of strong partnerships that could be developed or fostered going forward. So just really wanted to highlight that it's important to include those in the application to really strengthen that from the partner side. So with that, I think that wraps up our presentation on the initiative. I think at the end there was just also a slide around if you have questions, you can reach out. I just wanted to encourage everybody to reach out if you do have questions about the opportunity. And there is, some time before the final call or the date in December for the deadline. So just encourage everybody to reach out if you have questions before you're thinking about applying. I'll hand it back to Corey.
No, thank you, Jen. And that was just my final comment as well, is I'll be very accessible for any questions, and we'll point to everybody to our website. We'll post this recording on our website. And of course, I will be happy to help and answer any questions. But for those of you who are on the webinar, should you have any questions, feel free to put that in the chat. We'd be happy to take a moment to answer. Happy to answer any questions if there are on the team. Not seeing any, which either means we ran a fantastic webinar or that people are frantically typing as I speak, so we'll give folks a moment if there's any questions. But I just want to thank Brain Canada again for the incredible work of committing to funding this initiative, and a huge thank you to our Indigenous Advisory Circle, who did a wonderful job of coming together and really thinking about novel ways that we can be supporting our communities. And we're really excited with the 2 grants that were identified as priorities, and I think can have a meaningful opportunity. I see a question. Can several submissions from the same organization be submitted? Jen, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, I think in principle, yes, like we'd be open to submissions, that just making sure that they're sufficiently distinct and unique in their own proposal. And I think we'd probably be looking to fund kind of the most competitive proposal you're submitting. So, I mean, I think we'd certainly, we're not, it's not a no that in the requirements that we're saying, but I think we're really trying to invest in sort of fostering those partnerships. So mostly interested in trying to put your kind of best proposal forward, would be kind of the advice we'd give kind of more informally.
Yeah, that's great. And of course, we recognize that some larger organizations, institutions might have multiple different projects happening simultaneously, but absolutely. Anybody else? Second question. Oh, no, just a thank you, which we appreciate too. Well, as I said earlier, we'll definitely make sure that we're available as questions do continue to come up. You can always reach out to me. My email address is on the Indigenous Funding Stream webpage, C4J at Kids Brain Health. How many will be selected? Will be a competitive process, Hadir, and we will definitely be really excited to work together with our teams. I believe I will share that I think 4 of the connection grants will be chosen. At least 2 of the impact grants, although we're always trying to find ways to ensure that we can maximize our funding and grow partnerships as well. So we're looking forward to what we can support to that. All right. Any other questions? I'll give folks a minute to frantically type, but otherwise we might be giving folks time back in their calendars, which I know is also always appreciated, especially on my end. All right. Well then, with that, thank you all very, very much. I'll stop the recording.